Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this blue-black demon deck built around Baron Helmut Zemo from Marvel Superheroes. A 3-mana 3/3, saying whenever we cast a black spell from our hand, the Baron connives, so we get to draw a card and then discard. If we discarded a non-land card, the Baron picks up a +1/+1 counter. But we're mostly interested in the Baron's Boast ability, which does require us to have attacked with the Baron before we can activate it, and we also need to exile a total of 15 or more black mana symbols among cards in our graveyard, and that's among the mana costs. So that's a pretty steep requirement, but if we do, then we get to cast 3 of those exiled cards for free. And there's some powerful 2-card combos we could set up to instantly win the game, and they also happen to involve a lot of black mana symbols, and the combo I'm talking about is Bloodletter paired with Poxplague. The Bloodletter makes the opponent lose twice the amount of life during our turn, and then Poxplague makes them lose half of their life total. So as long as they have an even life total, because Poxplague rounds down, we can instantly win the game if we cast a Plague with a Bloodletter on the battlefield. If they have an odd life total, they will be left at 1 life, but of course they also have to sack a bunch of permanents, discard a bunch of cards, and we're still potentially in the attack step where Baron can also get the job done, especially if we maybe cast another removal spell to clear a path. So that's really the combo we're trying to set up. Bloodletter has 3 black mana symbols in its mana cost, Poxplague has 5, so that's already 8 total, so then we just need 7 more black mana symbols in the graveyard to set this up. And then the Connive from the Baron is also very useful in setting up the graveyard in the first place, as we can maybe discard some of these expensive cards, so we can hopefully cast them for free. So that's really the core that we're building around, and then from there we want some other ways to fill the graveyard, which is where Lewin and the Black Overlord come in handy. Lewin can also make sure we can keep hitting our land drops, and then the Overlord can also get our creatures back, including the Baron if it maybe gets answered. And then at 3 mana, I'm also playing the Unholy Annex, which gives us kind of a backup card draw engine, and also an alternate win condition against more controlling decks where they might have an easier time answering the Baron. Then we can still combine the Unholy Annex with a Bloodletter to deal a lot of damage and draw extra cards. The Ritual Chamber can also make a demon token, and the Annex as a whole has 3 black mana symbols in its mana cost, so that's also quite synergistic with the Baron. And then at 4 mana, I'm also playing 3 copies of Superior Spider-Man, the only reason to splash blue in the deck, since that can also be paired with Arden the Usurper, which is a bit expensive to cast at 8 mana, but still great to maybe cast for free with the Baron as a card with 3 black mana symbols, but especially good to reanimate with the Superior Spider-Man, as we can now start returning creatures out of our graveyard and turn them into demon tokens, so that has additional synergy with the Unholy Annex. And Arden getting back the Baron can also be a way for us to attack with the Baron right away to set up its Boast ability if we have a full enough graveyard, so that's another fun play pattern. And then we also have a few removal spells with Requiting Hex and Bitter Triumph. Bitter Triumph also functioning as a discard outlet to maybe set up the Baron or set up our Superior Spider-Man if we can discard Arden instead. So yeah, that's our build. We've got a few blue-black dual lands to fix our colors, and then plenty of basic swamps. I also considered going down the Doomsday Excruciator path as another card with a lot of black mana symbols. Also happens to be a demon, so there might be a bit of overlap between the 2 decks here. But then with the Excruciator, you would look for other ways to maybe mill the opponent out, and you could play the Somnophage, which is still a black card for the Baron, but you can also use the Adventure to maybe mill the opponent out completely, especially if you then also have a few copies of Restless Reef in the mana base, so that's potentially another way to approach the deck. But at least with this build, we're not all in on the Reanimator plan, and we can still win a fair game where the opponent maybe shuts down our graveyard just by curving Bloodletter into Poxplague, which can also get the job done. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Got a 1-2-3 curve. Let's see what our opponent's up to. Turn 1 swamp. And a Timeline Color, so more of a sacrifice deck. Yeah, I mean, they can still warp it out of the graveyard, but I may as well use the Hex. Save myself the damage. And then hope to mill lots of black mana symbols. I think I grab the Lewin to keep milling. Can try going for Baron next turn, or we can curve Annex into Bloodletter, so we've got a few options. Opponent with a Rakshasa, Spider-Man to draw. Yeah, I think Baron has the highest upside. And then next turn we can maybe worry about drawing into a land. Opponent's got their own Annex with the demon in play already. And another Overlord. Okay, I think we try Lewin, and then I get to connive. Finding another Lewin, which at this point can probably go. Although it's kind of a close call if we prefer Lewin or Overlord. Yeah, I think I still go for Overlord in hand. Okay, perfect. So found a blue source for Superior Spider-Man. And then next turn we can reanimate Arden if we'd like. If we count our black mana symbols, we're sitting at 6, 7, 8, plus another 6 is 14. So boasting with the Baron is also a possibility, especially after we cast another spell and connive. Do not have any Pox Plagues to just win the game on the spot with the Bloodletter, and yeah, Strategic Betrayal was painful here. So that's going to exile our entire graveyard, at least I get to keep the Baron alive. So what I can still do is cast a Spider-Man and then connive Bloodletter into the graveyard or Overlord to then turn Spider-Man into that creature. Which, yeah, could be reasonable. Is there a better option available? Can just cast a Bloodletter and hit for a ton of damage. But we also have to be careful that our opponent doesn't do the same next turn. So, kind of liking the Spider-Man play. Connive, discard Overlord, and make an Overlord. Did not mill any additional creatures. Do I want to attack for 5? Yeah, it's a close call. Because I can just maybe trade for the Rakshasa if they do attack after playing a Bloodletter, and then Spider-Man can get it back. So I think I'm going to stay put. Next turn we get another Overlord back. And another Annex. So we're going to get drained for 4. Although I do have an answer to the Rakshasa. And now requiring Hex as well. So what are we thinking? If I connive, I can discard a Bloodletter just to get it back, guaranteed. Casting Bloodletter, also an option, but I think we want to use some removal here. So, yeah, I can start by using Hex on Rakshasa. I think with Blight, just to gain some life back. Connive, discard Bloodletter. And then I could potentially attack. I think just with Superior Spider-Man to get back Bloodletter. And then I can still cast a Bloodletter. So then I guess I would have a blocker back on defense. But keeping up Triumph is safer if they have their own Bloodletter coming up. Otherwise I just die to double Annex. So in that case, I think I do attack with both. Just to keep up the pressure. Alright, we milled Bloodletter and Pox Plague. How many mana symbols do I have total? Opponent is on an even life total. Yeah, I'm half tempted not to get anything back now. Because with Bitter Triumph I can also connive again. If our opponent says no blocks, I can still make it an even amount of damage. And then if I discard the Annex plus Ritual Chamber, that's 3 more mana symbols. And then we've got Pox Plague plus Bloodletter to just win the game. So I guess I'll discard lands and then connive, discard Annex. That's how we want to do it. Opponent takes 10. And more importantly, we have the boast ability available. Could have also boasted before damage for what it's worth. But yeah, the important ones are Pox Plague and Bloodletter, and then we just want to get up to 15. Make sure we first click on the Pox Plague and then the Bloodletter, so Bloodletter's in play beforehand. And here we can choose either side. And there we go, opponent's at 0 life, having to decide what to sacrifice and what to discard. So yeah, just out of nowhere, with the right set of cards milled into the graveyard, we can just win the game on the spot. So opponent's dead, still having to decide what to sacrifice. And there we have it. Awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got what looks like a functional hand. Could keep up Hex on turn 1. If our opponent's got a Llanowar Elves, I think I just get the tap land out of the way. Since we do tend to deal ourselves a bit of damage as well, so life total certainly matters. And then turn 2 Overlord. A Baron would be a nice turn 3 follow-up. Okay, opponent blue-red. Let's impend. And found the Baron. So hopefully that can stick around for a turn or two. With this hand I would rather face a more aggressive prowess deck than a control deck. Opponent keeps up 2 mana. Have to try the Baron here. And then ideally we get to connive next turn. I see opponent on Lessons. So yeah, definitely a more controlling deck. They do still have Gran as a potential target for Hex and Triumph. But I'm not expecting the Baron to untap here. Alright, opponent goes for a tablet. Milling Spire Bluff. And they could still have the Combustion Technique for Baron. But no, looks like we get to untap after all. Okay, in that case, I don't think we're just playing Baron for the connive. So it's just going to be an attack for 3, not the most exciting turn. Sadly, I cannot cast the Hex, since there's no valid targets, just for the connive. Now a stock up. So this looks to be the Jeskai Lessons deck that also tops off its curve with Jeskai Revelation. So they could also have a counterspell up here. I guess we don't mind if Pox Plague gets countered. Can still cast it before attacking for the connive. Alright, and then discard 1 Baron. I'll have to discard 2 cards to hand size if Pox Plague resolves. So Hex and Triumph can go. We might be fueling another Accumulate Wisdom here. Could just sack 3 lands to keep the Overlord around, or I can sack Overlord and 2 lands. I think I sack the lands here. Just try and get there with what we have in play. Opponent discarding Capstone and Firebending Lesson, loses 2 lands. So if by some miracle they do not have removal for Baron, it could be threatening lethal next turn. Next turn Overlord turns into a creature. They do now get to draw 3. So next turn potentially 6 mana, still not enough for Revelation, but they do have a Combustion Technique. Was to be expected. So then we'll cast another Baron and hope for the best. They seem to have a Firebending Lesson in hand. Good for 2 damage, 5 damage when kicked. Opponent's gonna stock up first. And they found another technique for the Overlord. Small chance I can get the Baron up to 5 power. If Overlord first connives into a non-land card, and then I draw into Lewin, and that also connives again, for instance. Yeah, I mean, it seems worth going for. So discard Arden. That's 1+1 counter. And actually found Lewin, which I can still cast. So if the top card of my deck is a non-land, I can be attacking for 5 here. And we actually did it. Awesome. To be fair, if we didn't have a non-land card on top, I'm pretty sure we had enough to boast with the Baron, so that could have gotten there as well. But yeah, I'll take it. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Our hand is a bit more controlling in nature. We've got removal, double annex. It is also a lot of life loss until we get our demon in play. But yeah, especially against a control deck, this could be a reasonable hand. And our opponent with turn 1 Mistrise Village points in that direction. Blue-black. Yeah, I'll get the Overlord going. Milled Arden. Do I want to get it back? Graveyard Hate is a possibility, so I'll grab it now and then we can always discard it with a Bitter Triumph later. So opponent's Sultai colors. Let's see if they can answer the Annex. So far so good. So then next turn I could cast a Bloodletter. I see, opponent's got the Professor. Yeah, can take it out with a Bitter Triumph still. Before they got too much value. Don't want them to get the Emblem in play, so yeah, seems too risky to go for a Bloodletter here. So discard Arden, since I don't think we'll be casting it anytime soon. But I do expect a Sultai control deck to have some form of Graveyard Hate. A Mind into Matter to draw 3. And requiring Hex the draw. So Bloodletter seems reasonable. I'll get a double Annex effect. And then we kinda force him to answer it, otherwise we could win the game with a Pox Plague if we top deck it. Alternatively, I can just make a Demon Token, although an opposing Requiting Hex is an easier answer to that. But it does spend all my mana. So, kind of a close call. If Bloodletter gets extracted, because our opponent can pay for Collect Evidence, that would also be unfortunate. So maybe I do just make a demon here. Shoot the Sheriff will answer it. So then they must not have Requiting Hex in hand. Okay, so now what? Can make another Ritual Chamber. Could start small with the Unholy Annex. With 6 mana, I guess I don't mind double spelling Baron plus Annex. And then we can maybe connive away the Requiting Hex. Opponent's got another Shoot the Sheriff. And Superior Spider-Man's exciting, since that can maybe set up Arden. I'm half tempted to discard the Bloodletter, but that might be greedy. I'll still discard the Hex. Because Bloodletter in Graveyard would give us more black mana symbols if I wanted to maybe Spider-Man, Arden, get back Baron, attack and then connive. But that seems a bit ambitious against a control deck. We see the Withering Curse, makes sense when they're gaining some life. We do now also have an Overlord in play. And yeah, we'll see what they can come up with. Tight collar, so maybe they're more of a mill deck. And together as one, taking out Overlord. Opponent milling me. Well, they might regret that, because they essentially set up my entire graveyard now to win the game on the spot with Baron. So, yeah. Spider-Man turns into Arden. Arden gets back Baron. And then we don't really need anything else. Baron attacks, so I can boast even before blockers. And then we just want Bloodletter and Pox Plague. Can even go for double Pox Plague. But yeah, nothing else really matters. So just want to get up to 15 mana symbols. And then make sure to cast Bloodletter before Pox Plague, which means clicking on Pox Plague first. And then annex. And there we go, our opponent's at 0 life. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got 2 lands. Missing the Baron, don't have any early interaction. So this one's pretty sketch. We can try to curve Annex into Bloodletter, but we still need to hit some land drops. No way to discard Arden. Although if we do have Superior Spider-Man. I think it's still a mulligan, but definitely close. This one's better. So I want to keep 3 lands, Baron, probably Bitter Triumph. And then I have to decide between Bloodletter and Pox Plague. Or I could keep the Bloodletter and Pox Plague combo. But it feels like I'm gonna need some removal. You know what, let's just get rid of the Bitter Triumph. Since we are on the play, maybe we can get away with just curving out and being proactive. Play Lewin. Wouldn't mind keeping a land on top. Alright, so I'll keep the land and then Baron into maybe Bloodletter. Already have 9 black mana symbols in the graveyard as our opponent plays Recruit with Offspring. So I can cast a Bloodletter, discard Pox Plague, adding 5 more symbols, gets us up to 14. So I kind of want Lewin to die here. As our opponent plays Ouroboros, attacks, and I get to chump. So Lewin's now in the graveyard for Baron. Alright, so yeah, we might have done it. Cast Bloodletter, connive Pox Plague into the graveyard. Attack, and then we can boast before blockers. Exiling all of these. And then I first want to click on Pox Plague and then on the Bloodletter, so we have double Bloodletter at the time Pox Plague resolves. And our opponent knows that they're dead. Since they're at 20, they're gonna lose half their life, and that's gonna get doubled twice by the 2 Bloodletters, so more than enough. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Baron, Pox Plague. Yeah, this hand just needs to find Bloodletter, more mill effects. I'll keep a Swamp so we have more untapped mana. Opponent red-white. Can Surveil again. And then probably say no to Watery Grave now. So a Mardu discard deck with the Iron Shield Elf. So don't expect a ton of interaction, but yeah, opponent can also present a lot of damage very quickly. And a practiced offense with double strike here already hits for 8. Gonna take it. What I can still do is Bitter Triumph in the opponent's turn to force them to tap the elf so they can't attack with it. So that might be a play we consider. Yeah, I think that's reasonable as opposed to going for Unholy Annex. and leaving myself kind of in a spot where I'm forced to chump. So we'll see if they go for another practice defense. And they do. Alright, can let them decide. Goes for a double strike, but before attackers, I will be discarding probably the Pox Plague. Don't really see myself casting it anytime soon. And then I can connive away another Baron as well. Iron Shield discards Requiting Hex, which now maybe opens up the Demon from Ritual Chamber as an extra blocker. See what we connive into. Opponent might have the Erode as removal. Now Overlord can always get the Baron back. We have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana symbols at most. So not quite enough to boast. Yeah, may as well attack. I guess I die if her opponent did have the Erode, erodes the Demon, and then has another practice defense. How likely is that? Not impossible. They've been pretty patient, but it's also maybe just the Iron Shield Elf holding priority. So I might be reading too much into it. Nope, they did have another Requiting Hex, not an Erode. Okay, do they have another offense? Looks like it's... Alright, GG's. And that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. This hand has Superior Spider-Man, and then Lewin, mostly hoping to mill something like Arden, so we can turn Spider-Man into the powerful 8-drop. Yeah, this hand's got potential. Lewin can also help hit my third land. And then we've got the Baron. So yeah, just want to mill as many black mana symbols into the graveyard as possible. And maybe there's going to be a Spider-Man angle. There's definitely a lot of ways to build this deck. Also considered the Doomsday Excruciator, with maybe some mill effects to finish the opponent off after getting them down to 6 cards. For now, opponent on Blue-Red Prowess with Stormchaser's Talent. Okay, those are some beautiful mills. So I think I just take the land, keep Bloodletter and Arden in the graveyard. And then Baron has a potential of going off with Pox Plague and Bloodletter. But we also have Spider-Man for Arden. If the Baron gets answered, opponent just bouncing their talents. I'm happy to chump with Lewin, since that's more devotion basically in the graveyard. Play the Baron. And if they remove it, it's not the end of the world. So if we add up all the symbols, we have 8 plus another 5, 13. So we're almost there. If I cast Bitter Triumph, conniving Spider-Man into the graveyard, we would have enough. And then I just need to turn the Baron sideways to win the game. For now, Burst Lightning. They have 2 spells in the graveyard for potential Adimurk crabs. Alright, I mean, I'm kind of liking the Bitter Triumph instead of Spider-Man. If they have some sort of counterspell, what could it be? Either way, I could start by attacking instead of going for Spider-Man on Arden. Okay, so I am declared as an attacker. Discard Spider-Man. Which also lets me connive. Can just get rid of a land at this point. That works. Alright, and then we can boast 15 exactly. But the important ones are Pox Plague and Bloodletter. And then I can go for an Arden as well. So first make sure we resolve the Bloodletter before Pox Plague resolves. So I want to click on Bloodletter last. Discard a card. And our opponent's already dead. 0 life thanks to Pox Plague plus Bloodletter on turn 4. So it can be done. Sacrifice 3 permanents, doesn't matter. But yeah, if they were on an odd life total, we still have the attack from Baron coming in. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a functional hand. Turn 2 Overlord, turn 3 Annex. Looking for the Bloodletter, so we can just win with Pox Plague. Opponent also blue-black. There's a Baron. So we've got options. And I'll get back a Lewin. So we currently have a total of 4 black mana symbols for the Boast. Opponent could be on the Sultai Reanimator deck as well here. I think Baron still has a little bit more upside than Annex, even though they might have some spot removal. And then casting Lewin, conniving Pox Plague into the graveyard adds a lot of extra symbols. Alright, that's unfortunate. Strategic Betrayal, exiling Baron and my entire graveyard. Was not expecting that one. So maybe change of plan. Opponent's more of a control deck than I imagined, maybe. So we'll get Annex going. The plan is still to find Bloodletter. But we might struggle to keep it in play. Opponent now keeping up 4 mana. There's a Bloodletter. But yeah, I don't really trust it here. Can just make a demon token with Ritual Chamber. Next turn we can double spell. And our opponent's gonna Quandrix Charm, destroying the enchantment. Still got a demon out of it. So now they need to find a different answer for that. Cease more graveyard hate. So yeah, the graveyard angle's probably not gonna work. But that's why we can also potentially just win with Bloodletter. So maybe start with Lewin. Could have also started with Bloodletter to play around Quandrix Charm, counter unless you pay 2. I'll get back an Overlord. And then... do I play Bloodletter now? They could have spot removal for Demon and then wipe the board, maybe even extracting Bloodletter with the 5 mana cover-up. So maybe I just hit for 6, see what happens. Opponent had a Witherbloom Charm. Yeah, I guess I'll try the Bloodletter now. Although I guess the Overlord turning into a creature still makes me overextend a bit into a board wipe. And if they search my deck, they would also be able to shuffle my Overlord that's on top. Luckily, it was just another Strategic Betrayal. So, yeah, if Pox Plague resolves, they're just dead. So let's try it. Opponent's got a Fankeeper's Familiar, which can put them on an odd life total, so they don't just die on the spot. But yeah, I don't think it's going to help them too much, because we can still attack. And our opponent dies. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got an awkward triple Gloomlake Verge opener. So no actual black mana. So I don't think I can keep, even though we have Bloodletter plus Pox Plague. So if I draw any other land, this hand's actually pretty fire, since we have Triumph into Annex and to Bloodletter into Pox Plague. Maybe we'll risk it for the biscuit. Because yeah, our other dual lands are still swamps. Plenty of basic swamps in the deck. Alright. Opponent of black-white. With a case, so a skeleton deck. Yeah, don't love solving their case right away. So probably hang on to the Bitter Triumph. Start with the Annex. If they Sheltered by Ghosts, I can still pay the ward next turn. Alright, they do have the corpses, so that is a lot of damage now. But if they cannot answer the Bloodletter, they just die next turn. They did have the Sheltered by Ghosts. Again, I can still pay for it if it's just a one copy, but we'll see. Ethereal Armor. ×2. Wow. I guess I got punished for not casting the Bitter Triumph on turn 2, but yeah, this was pretty unexpected since most skeleton decks do not run Ethereal Armor. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got a keepable hand, lots of ways to fill the graveyard. Hopefully find the Baron. Don't need more lanes. Opponent with Tiny Bones. Alright, so I have to be careful now when milling. But Lewin can also trade for Tiny Bones. And yeah, Arden would be nice to leave in the graveyard if we ever find Superior Spider-Man. Don't need to put more lands on top. If they have Hex, they can still connect with Tiny Bones. And then I guess they're not casting anything, so... And yeah, opponent did have the removal for Lewin. Tiny Bones connect. But it's not like they can just exile Arden, they can only cast it if they have the mana for it. So next turn, Tiny Bones is probably getting Lewin back. But yeah, that's fine. Just going for Overlord, can surveil maybe after we mill. And found Superior Spider-Man, so yeah, opponent now knows about it, but we'll see if they have a way to stop it. Opponent's got an Annex, so Tiny Bones isn't getting anything back. And the coast is clear for Spider-Man into Arden, into another Overlord. Which is going to be hard to beat. And get a Bloodletter back, I think. No Baron in sight. To set up our combo. Could grab Lewin. I guess I have to be a little careful here with Tiny Bones getting back my Bloodletter from the graveyard. But if that's their turn, I think we're pretty happy. So yeah, maybe getting back the Bloodletter was safer. So our opponent doesn't need cast it. Annex drains for 4. But now we can play Lewin to fill the graveyard up some more. Before attacking, or I can cast a Bloodletter. Because of course these are all demons as well. So this also would gain haste. Yeah, let's just cast a Bloodletter. Go to attackers. And get back another Overlord. And this should pretty much be game over. Yeah, opponent can at most block Superior Spider-Man and then still take 12 times 2 is 24. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is maybe lacking in direction a little bit. We have Lewin to fill the graveyard. I guess we can still mill a Baron and then try and cast it. And take it from there. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. An Overlord could be good. or just hitting a Bloodletter to go with Box Plague. Our opponent with a turn 1 Plains and a Forest, so green-white. Go for Lewin. Did not mill any creatures, don't need to get a swamp back. And a Mossborn Hydra, so it's the Landfall deck. And they probably had an Erode in hand as well, since they were sort of holding priority as soon as a creature hit the table. So with that information, Mossborn is scary. They might also have some protection spells. So I'm half tempted to just Bitter Triumph, discard Arden for now. And we may as well attack. So if they do ever tap out of white mana, a Superior Spider-Man on Arden could be great. And this is going to be telling whether or not to attack with the Plains. They do. So maybe they do not have an Erode. So if we had a Spider-Man, we could have gotten back Arden. So now I can first attack for 1, and then play another Lewin, so we have 1 on defense. And that's a swing and a miss. So yeah, haven't found any more important creatures. The Baron, Spider-Man, even an Overlord could have been decent. For now, Bantermole Cub, I will allow. Mostly want to keep Bitter Triumph for like an Ice Still Explorer, another Hydra, or maybe the Harmonizer could be a problem. Tara Symbiosis, that was unexpected. Okay, so they've got some card advantage here. So yeah, Box Plague does not look particularly strong, since their opponent can just get their lands back that they earthbounded onto. Activating Lewin requires a land in hand. Making 5 1/1s, I guess, could be reasonable. For now, pass a turn. Opponent doesn't know that we don't have a land in hand. Alright, there's Ice Still. No fetch land in circulation yet, but they might have one in hand. Erode their own creature. So yeah, now it's my window to maybe Bitter Triumph. Still discarding Arden, since we're pretty far from hardcasting it. So they do get to enable Landfall a bunch. Opponent's down to 1 card in hand, draw a land. Yeah, I guess we're activating Lewin. And then after I activate Lewin, Box Plague looks a bit better, since we can just sack a bunch of tokens instead. Another Cub. They get to draw. And they have an Erode. So I'll activate on the way out. Make 6 1/1s, which can hopefully keep us alive for a while. So I'm pretty happy to make trades. Even though they get to trigger the Ascension in the process. Yeah, let's maybe think about this. So Terra Symbiosis is already triggered, so they're not going to get more value out of it. So I guess I'm fine with the Ascension triggering a bunch right now. Opponent had a Snakeskin Veil to save the Cub. But now they are out of cards in hand. Yeah, keeping the 1/1s could have worked well with a Box Plague, but then they would have triggered Terra Symbiosis in my turn. Baron was huge. So yeah, now I just need 1 turn with a Baron, and then next turn we should get there one way or another. I guess there's no Bloodletters in the graveyard yet, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. So the Cubs attack. No real danger of dying if I take it. Sure. Sewers I could still play, maybe surveil something useful for the Baron. Like a Bloodletter. So as long as I get to turn the Baron sideways, we're good to go. Alright. Ooh, opponent had the Erode. Yeah, they should have cast it when they had the chance, because we can now boast. We've got Bloodletter and Pox Plague. Opponents on an even life total, so they are just dead here. Just getting up to 15 black mana symbols. And then we want to make sure Bloodletter is on the battlefield when casting Pox Plague, which means clicking on Pox Plague first. Always double check, because you can easily mess that up. So we get Arden, Bloodletter, and Pox Plague. Sacking 5 permanents, not a problem. Can also sack the Baron at this point, but yeah, opponent's on 0 life. So yeah, we got to see this mono-black Baron Demon deck in action. And yeah, the Baron was quite impressive. The main problem being that it does require you to attack with it before you can really combo off. And it's just a 3/3 creature that the opponent could pretty easily answer. The deck is still vulnerable to Graveyard Hate if we want to set up the Baron or the Superior Spider-Man plan. But the deck is also maybe capable of winning through Graveyard Hate just by playing the demons. Can still curve your Bloodletter into a Pox Plague, and that doesn't care about Graveyard Hate in the slightest. So yeah, it has a few different angles of attack. Maybe not the epitome of consistency, since you do need to get pretty lucky with the cards you mill in the graveyard sometimes, but it still seems like a solid contender as at least a casual deck for the current ranked ladder. Probably not a deck I would recommend if you just want to rank up as quickly as possible. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.